Hello and welcome to How to Pass Endpoint Assessment for Customer Service Practitioner Level 2 with the light bulb. We've put this session together for you so that we can explain all elements of the endpoint assessment, which we shorten to EPA. This will explain what happens leading up to the endpoint assessment, but also what will happen on the day itself. On the screen, you can see the How to Pass EPA document. If you haven't received this already, please ask your Learning and Development mentor and they'll send it over to you and go through the process with you as well on a one-to-one basis if you need it. So on the screen, you can see the document itself. It tells us there that you need to have completed your program of learning and you need to have been on program for at least 372 days before you can go to endpoint assessment. So what that means is you need to have had all of your learning with us and you've been on for over a year so that we can make sure that you've had the chance to practice all the skills and we've got all the right evidence that we need for your portfolio. The assessment itself will test your knowledge, skills and behaviours, and it will test it in 3 different ways. Now you can see here at the bottom of the screen, it lists the 3 different ways that we'll be looking for you to meet the criteria. First of all is a showcase portfolio. So you may have already been aware that there are some worksheets and workshops available within this course. Usually the workshops run monthly and there are 10 workshops altogether with 10 workbooks attached. As you complete each of these workbooks, they'll be marked and we'll be giving you feedback until they're completed to make sure that they're your best work. Once they are your best work, we'll be putting them onto Learning Assistant and we'll be starring them for Showcase Portfolio. When you go to Learning Assistant in your evidence folder, you'll see there that there is a little star on the right-hand side of each uploaded piece of evidence that we can click once we're happy that it's fully finished and ready for your Showcase Portfolio. Once we've got everything we need and everything's been starred, we'll then download that portfolio and send it off to City and Guilds for them to check and assess. There's another element as well, which is observation. So hopefully during your program, you will have been observed in your workplace. This can be remote or it can be face-to-face. But at the endpoint assessment, you will be observed by City and Guilds. City and Guilds will want to see everything that you do within your role, and they'll also be looking for you to meet a certain amount of criteria for the observation as well and see certain things that we'll be going through as we progress through this document. And the last element here is professional discussion. So again, there is criteria for you to meet within the professional discussion at the endpoint assessment, and the criteria is contained within this document. But leading up to the endpoint assessment, we will be practicing that method by doing professional discussions with you. So between you and your learning and development mentor or any of our other staff, we'll be practicing how to complete a professional discussion, and we'll be collecting the evidence and giving you feedback so that you're well prepared beforehand, so you'll know how it goes on the day and you'll know what needs to be included. So as I mentioned, your showcase portfolio is your best pieces of work. It will contain the 10 worksheets that we'll be asking you to complete. And there is a worksheet, as I said, for every workshop that you attend. So it's mandatory for you to attend all 10 workshops and complete all 10 worksheets. If there are any issues with any of your worksheets, if you are finding it difficult to complete, your learning and development mentor will spend one-to-one time with you, supporting you with that best they can. What we want to do is make sure that the work is your best work by checking any spelling, punctuation and grammar. Include screenshots wherever you can of the work that you've completed to show as evidence. And also make sure that if there's any customer information or internal staff information, that is all redacted and blocked out of your evidence so that no one can see that and use it for anything fraudulent. Make sure that when you're giving your evidence and you're typing your answers in, you are talking about yourself. So you are using I instead of we or us. And that just shows that you have actually experienced these things and they're your examples. If ever you've got any questions about your answers at all, or if you need any support, you can contact anyone at the light bulb to help you, but mainly your learning and development mentor will be able to support you with that. What we also need to do is make sure that your evidence shows over a period of time. So that means that we can't complete everything in one day. We do need to make sure that you are working over a period of time, which is over a year, and we are seeing how you're progressing within that year. So we might observe you quite close to the start of your programme, and then we might do another observation sort of halfway through to see how you've progressed and to make sure that, not only have you still got the knowledge, skills and behaviours that you had at the beginning, but you've also got a few more extra on top of that as well. Now, you will be supported throughout choosing your evidence, but the 10 workshops and the 10 worksheets that you'll be asked to complete, here are the units that they are in regards to. So you can see here, the first one is understanding your organisation. You'll attend a workshop, complete your learning, and then be given a worksheet to complete. You are allowed to have your worksheets in advance. So if you would like to see your worksheets up front, you absolutely can, and you can make a start on those. But what we always suggest is that you try to focus on one at a time and complete that before moving on to the next, just so that you don't get confused, and we are showing that you are making progress by completing number one, or whichever number you start with, and then moving on to the next one. If we have 10 outstanding for the whole year, we're not showing any completion progress there. So that's what we want to see. We want to see what you're getting finished and signed off. Now, within your showcase portfolio, the 10 units, the 10 worksheets, the 10 workshops, I explained that each one's got a name and each one is relevant to a unit within the course. So, for example, the first workshop, the first worksheet is all around understanding the organisation. So within that, there are criteria for you to meet, and you can see those here on screen. So you've got the 1.1, 2 and 3, the 2s and the 3s, and all of this needs to be met within that workbook for you to pass this unit. At the bottom here, you can see some pass criteria as well. So what it's asking you to do is make sure that all of this is met, and if it's all met, then it will be a pass. As we scroll down to the next unit, you'll notice this one's slightly different because we have got criteria at the top to be met, but then at the bottom, we've also got some pass and distinction criteria. What that means is there's more than one grade that you can be given at the end. So you can either get a pass or a distinction. Now, to get a pass, you need to make sure that all of the pass criteria is met for every single unit. To get a distinction, you need to meet all of the pass criteria and all of the distinction criteria in order to achieve that. What we do at the Light Bulb is we always aim for distinction. So we only need a pass, but we would like our learners to be able to achieve distinction wherever possible. And we give you that opportunity by aiming for those criteria. So if your workbook comes back for this unit and you're hitting all the pass criteria, but you're not quite hitting all the distinction criteria, we'll give you some feedback so that you can add to it and improve it, and then hopefully hit those distinction points there. So it's exactly the same as we move down. We've got criteria to meet for the systems and resources unit. Product and service knowledge, there is pass and distinction criteria. Influencing skills, there's pass and distinction criteria. And from here down is really where we start to look at skills a bit more. So just to explain what I mean by that, the units up here are more based on your knowledge. So you're telling us, okay, this is what my knowledge is of, systems and resources. This is what my knowledge is of products and services. But when we get to influencing skills, this is where you'll start to notice the workbooks change slightly. So influencing skills is workbook number 5, and it links to unit number 10. And this is where it will start to ask, give me an example of a time when you've done something. So here is where we start hitting all those skills points by asking for real examples. And that's where you want to pop in your screenshots of emails, maybe letters that you're sending out. It could be a written pad. Maybe you've got some notes on a written pad that you're using. You could take photos of the office or documents that you're using, or screenshots of meetings if it's remotely. Again, personal organisation is another more skills-based unit. So we're going to be asking for more examples of real times when you've done things. Dealing with customer conflict and challenge. This is quite a big unit. we've got the ones, the twos, the threes and the fours to meet, but then also you've got pass and distinction criteria. And again, it's one of those skills units where we're going to be asking for some real examples of times when you've handled customer conflict and challenge. Then you've got developing self. Now, for the developing self unit, there is a workshop, there is a worksheet, but there's also your training plan. So it's very important that you keep your training plan up to date and you're working with your learning and development mentor to improve that every single time you're together. So every time you have a session, it should be brought up between you and developed between you and then replaced on Learning Assistant, because it's actually not only used to track your hours learning, but also it's used as a piece of evidence within the developing self unit. In this unit, it talks about strengths and weaknesses and preparing a personal development plan. And that is where it comes into play using your training plan, because on tab 1, we've got your personal development plan there. And at the bottom of tab 1, it should show your own personal learning objectives that you agreed right from the very start of the qualification. If you've got any questions about any of that or your training plan, don't forget you can contact your learning and development mentor or anyone at the Lightbulb to support you with that. Next up, being open to feedback. Again, there's criteria to meet and there's pass criteria for this one. There's no distinction criteria on this unit. So you will be asked for examples. There will be a workshop and a worksheet for this unit for you to complete. And you will need to make sure you've got your screenshots and your evidence in there as well. And those screenshots, don't forget, you can pop them straight into the workbook. You don't need to save them as additional documents. And then the last unit in your showcase portfolio is about team working. Now for this one, you've got criteria to meet at the top, and then it splits it out here into what's pass and what's distinction. So we need to achieve all of this to make sure that you pass this unit. There is a workshop, there is a worksheet for you to complete, but also we might be able to speak to some members of your team that you have worked with to gather evidence there as well. So if there is anybody that you think might be useful that we could speak to and collect a witness testimony, don't forget to let your learning and development mentor know, because that's a great piece of evidence for your showcase portfolio. So once all of these units are complete, we'll be starring them on your Learning Assistant portfolio, downloading it from there, and then sending it off to City and Guilds. The next section of the endpoint assessment is the observation. So once we've sent all of your worksheets and workbooks and your whole portfolio off to City and Guilds, we'll then be booking your endpoint assessment date. And that will tell us exactly when this observation is going to take place. Now, the observation is someone from City and Guilds watching you at work, but you'll be well prepared for it. So there's no need to be nervous. If you are somebody who would be nervous in this situation, we'll make sure that we practice this many times throughout the course of your apprenticeship so that you're ready for the endpoint assessment. As I said, this lasts for an hour. So while we're practicing, we'll make sure that we observe you for an hour so that you can feel, what it would feel like to be observed for a whole hour. The most important thing in an observation is to make sure that you're prepared in advance so you know exactly what is going to be observed. We've got the units down here. These are the units that they're going to be looking for when they're observing you. And we've also got further down the criteria to be met. So what you can do is you can prepare for this to show the assessor everything on that day. So you can point them towards all of this evidence and show them things that you're doing within each of these units to meet the criteria, the pass and the distinction. As I said, we'll be practicing this many times throughout the course of your apprenticeship. At least twice we'll observe you, and we can do some remote live observations of you at work, as well as observing you face to face. Further down, we've got the units, the criteria that you need to meet whilst being observed. So like I said, you can prepare for this in advance and we can practice it many times before you get to your endpoint assessment. And then the last part is professional discussion. So as I said, on the day of the observation, we will also expect you to have the professional discussion with City and Guilds on the same day. The professional discussion covers 3 units: knowing your customers, your role and responsibility, and customer experience. And as I said before, just like the observation, you'll be practicing this many times before we get to endpoint assessment. So there's no need to worry. There won't be any surprises. They won't ask you any unknown questions, because within this document, you've got everything that they're going to be asking you. So these are the questions that they'll be asking you at the end. They might slightly change the wording, but it will be about the same topics. So you can see here, you've got the first unit, you've got the criteria, and then again, you've got the pass and the distinction at the bottom. We'll be practicing this at least twice before your endpoint assessment, and we'll be using the evidence that we collect during those practice sessions to pop into your portfolio as well. Just remember that to achieve a distinction, you do need to meet everything that's in the pass and everything that's in the distinction. So at the end of the endpoint assessment, you might wonder if you're going to be given the results straight away. They don't give them to you verbally straight away during that day. They will contact us and let us know the results, and it can take up to 20 working days. We do need to make sure that you're aware of that. Sometimes they come back as quick as a week. So you might complete your endpoint assessment on a Monday, and by the following Monday, you've got your result. However, it's not immediate. So they won't be telling you straight away on the day whether or not you've passed or got distinction. So just bear that in mind. And you need to make sure as well that you're following all your company procedures. So when they come out to your place of work, you're signing them into the company as you would, filling out visitors logs, making sure they've got the visitors badge, if that's the process for your company, and just making sure everything is as safe as possible while they're in the building. No bags on the floors, no coats lying around, no wires trailing. And if there are any hazards around, you're letting the assessor know to be careful of that certain area. So again, we run these sessions on how to pass EPA monthly. So if you want to come along to a session and you want to be given this information live, you are more than welcome to attend. Please speak to your LDM about getting booked onto that. But if the video is enough, then that's great. And if you do have any follow-up questions, please let your LDM know and they'll get those over to me and we'll answer those as quickly as possible. Thank you for listening and good luck with your endpoint assessment.